Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. Welcome to today's wealthmanagement.com webinar, Convert Leads, Delight Clients, Proven Communication Strategies. This webinar is sponsored by FMG. My name is Shannon Rossick, and I'm the Director of WealthStack Content Solutions at Informa Connect, and I'll be your host today. And in just a moment, we will get started, but first, just let me explain how you can get the most out of this event today. To improve your viewing and listening experience, you can move your webcast windows around by dragging on the title bar or resize them by clicking on the lower right corner. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find multiple application widgets, and clicking on these icons allow you to open and close widgets on your screen, but will not remove you from the event, so don't worry. And a copy of today's slide presentation and additional resources are available for download in the resource list widget. And please note this webinar has been accepted for 1 CE credit hour towards the AEP designation program. Investments in Wealth Institute has also accepted this program for 1 hour of CE credit towards the CIMA, CPWA, CIMC, and RMA certifications. Instructions for credit submittal are available in the resource list widget. And of course, we welcome questions about our topic, and we'll answer as many as we can following the presentation, but feel free to submit yours in the queue at any time. Just type it in the Q&A window on the left-hand side of your screen and hit the submit button. Also, please be aware that today's session is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing following the event today. Simply log in using the same URL that you're using today. So now for the exciting part, let me introduce today's speakers to you. We have Susan Theder, Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at FMG, and Sean Brown, CEO of YCharts. And you can find more information about our speakers by clicking on the speaker bio widget at the bottom of your screen. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Susan, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I'm just putting this agenda slide so you can kind of keep track of where we are in the presentation. I always think people are like, wait, are we on track? How long is this going to take? This will probably, I think we'll probably get through this in about 35 minutes. So we'd really love to have questions, and obviously know that your time is valuable. We're going to start by going over some fantastic research that YCharts has done. Sean is going to lead us through that. And then we're going to discuss whether communications can really play a role in your success, as well as impact retention. From there, we're going to transition into actionable, bulletproof marketing ideas so that you can leave today's session with a whole host of ideas that you could implement right away. So hopefully you will both learn tons from the research as well as be inspired by the ideas that we will share. So with that, I think we're going to just dive right into the research. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I forgot we had a poll. We are going to start by asking everybody. So everybody wake up. We'd love you to take this poll. Approximately how frequently do you communicate with clients? Once a week, once a month, once a quarter, or once every 6 months? And I can see how many people are answering, and we're at 9. So let's just click a button. All right, cool. We're getting some more here. Excellent. The number's popping up. So just think about, how often are you, dripping on your clients with information? What's the average number of times that you're sending out, an email or meeting with them? All right, I think we're still sorry. I'll wait until I stop seeing numbers kind of climbing here, but we're still seeing the numbers go up. People are taking some time to think about this. All right, I think I will drum roll and give the results. Let's see what we've got. I wonder if you could even guess, Sean. Interesting.
Wow.
Well, I will let you dissect this information and tell you what you think about this and how it jives with your research. And it's a good segue right into the research.
Yeah, that's awesome context. So it looks like people are roughly evenly split between once a week, once a month, and once a quarter, and very few are in the every 6 months. So yeah, let's proceed to the next slide, and I will talk about a study we did. So, from the introduction, I'm the CEO of YCharts. And we have been hearing over the last several years advisors who we talk to, trying to face the challenge of communication. And we thought it would make sense to skip right over the advisors and go talk to advised individuals. So we've done 2 studies, one in 2019 and one in 2022, where we polled almost 700 respondents who are people who are advised by a wealth advisor. And first thing I'd say is we got a very good cross section of age, assets under management, and the type of wealth advisor that they are. And again, happy to make this study available to everybody. You will see some links to that, so no need to take feverish notes, but about 700 people responded. And let me tell you what we heard from them. Next slide, please.
All right.
So a few important things on that prior slide was...
Sorry. All right, there we go.
There we go. Number one thing we heard is about 50% of advised individuals have either left their advisor since 2020 or strongly considered leaving their advisor.
I wish we could see everybody, because I'd love to ask, and maybe just everybody think about, does that surprise you? And is retention something that you think about as a focus of your marketing efforts and your communication efforts? Just keep that in mind as we're going through this.
Yeah, the thing I would point to with this, Susan, is this is in stark contrast to some things people verbalize all the time in the industry, which is the average retention of a client is 95 to 97.5%. That's
Wow.
not what our study said. Our study said that 20% of people switched their advisor since 2020, and another 25-ish% thought about switching. So that's thing number one, and that's important.
You know if the 95% number was based on advisors' perception of client retention or actually a survey of advised clients?
I believe it was a survey of advised clients, and I'll bet that survey was done right in the middle of the 11.5-year bull market, where who was going to leave their advisor when every time a statement came home, it said, look, honey, we're worth more today than we were last month or last quarter.
Yep.
It's no longer the case. And Susan, you and I have talked about this before. One of the things I want to mention to any advisors on this call is there's something called the Lake Wobegon effect. And we've all seen this, that says when American parents were polled, it's 90% of American parents thought that their child was of above average intelligence. Now, that's statistically impossible. 80% of Americans think they are above average drivers. That can't be true. And I'll tell you, it's definitely not true with my 3 family members, my 2 kids and my wife. It's not true. They are below average, but they will all tell you they are above average. But I think the thing I would tell people is avoid the temptation to say it's not me, it's that other advisor. It's all advisors have opportunities to be better communicators. The number 2 thing that we learned is an advisor's success is dependent on their communication strategy. There are 3 consequences of not having great communication. One is lack of confidence in the financial plan. Number 2 is unwillingness to give referrals. And Susan, I don't know about you, but I've heard referrals are the number 1 source of new customers for many advisors.
They absolutely are.
Number 3 is your ability to retain that customer is in jeopardy. So lack of faith in the plan, no more referrals, and I may leave you. And poor communication, infrequent or not targeted enough or not through the right channels, that will impact your relationship with your clients. So those are the biggest findings, and I can go into more detail.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers. And, I think before you, go too much further, I'm not sure everybody on this call knows who YCharts is. So maybe as you transition to this next slide, you can talk a little bit about YCharts and why this research was relevant to the work that you guys do. I think what we're really talking about in this next section is, do you need to think about retention? And obviously our message is yes.
So very quick, YCharts does two things for advisors. We help them make better investment decisions, and we help them produce better content that helps them communicate their insights. That's what we do. Back to the study. So we already mentioned that clients are considering a switch. The thing I wanted to point out is at the bottom here, guess which clients are more prone to be considering a switch. It's your highest net worth customers, and it's your youngest customers. Listen, if your customer base are 75 or 80-year-old folks who've been with you forever, they're not at risk. But your highest net worth and your youngest customers, they're asking for a lot more communication in order to retain their services.
So the next point that we want to make, obviously, is communication strategy can absolutely impact your success. I really was drawn to YCharts and Sean because as I do presentations about marketing and the importance of marketing to advisors who are growing through referrals and all of the growth strategies that you're doing, marketing is at its core. I was looking for a stat that would prove it. And YCharts has been doing this study for several years. And there is a huge correlation between effective communications and both retention and likelihood to refer and share of wallet. So I'm going to transition and let Sean talk through that.
Yeah, so get asked a lot about, well, what do people say about the frequency of the communication of their current advisor? A couple things to note here. Top chart right, 1.6% of people say they wish they were hearing less from their advisor. That's very few people are saying I'm being over communicated with. The important thing here is the blue boxes are both saying that add up to 46, 47%. Those are saying, I wish I heard from my advisor more frequently. The left supports things we've already talked about, but again, respondents under 60 and respondents with more money being managed, those are the ones that are particularly saying, I want to hear from my advisor more.
Yeah, but I love the slide. I love the graphs on the left because I think that's at the heart of what most of the people on this call are probably interested in. It's almost all of your clients are deciding whether to retain your services based on your communication style and frequency. I mean, that's huge. And then almost all of them are considering your style and frequency in terms of whether they would refer a friend or family member to you. So retention and growth are almost one-to-one correlated with your communications. So I really love those two graphs on the left.
Yep. So this is an interesting thing we found, a big difference between the 2019 study and the 2022 study. This is about what are you talking to your clients about. During the 11.5-year bull market, clients were prioritizing, hey, my advisor understands me, my advisor is available when I need them. And the third most important thing they talk about is portfolio performance as something I want to hear from my advisor about. In 2022, circled in red, you can see they're now saying, that the old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? Or the Jerry Maguire line, which is show
me the money.
Show me the money kind of thing. They're saying, show me the money. Show me how my portfolio is doing. Tell me why my portfolio is doing well or poorly. Remind me of that plan that we agreed to. Don't shy away from talking to me about that very service that I hired you for. So I think this is a big thing as clients want to hear about investments and investment performance. It's really good that you know their family. It's really good you're providing other services. Tell them how their nest egg is doing under your guidance.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, so it's okay that I'm doing this live, but I have a little bit of a devil's advocate perspective on this. Like every survey that you do, questions can be interpreted by the recipient, the person taking the survey in very different ways. And in this case, what we're talking about is frequency and effectiveness of communication. So what's on their mind, I do think in volatile markets, I can attest to it as well. Portfolio performance is on my mind when I think about my advisor. But as it relates to what's going to keep me with my advisor and what's going to make me likely to refer, I still believe that it's the frequency, style of communications, and those soft skills about which I think are reflected in your communications, that you're thinking about me, that you care about me, that you understand my family, and that you go above and beyond. So yes, I think portfolio performance is always sort of in the top three of why you'd leave somebody, but I think the real trigger is still going to be more along the lines of, do they care? Do they contact me frequently? Do I feel like I'm on their mind? So I think it's sort of an interesting nuance of what's on my mind versus, are you communicating enough?
I think you're dead on there, and I wouldn't disagree with you in any way. There are multiple colors on here. You need to be communicating about the various colors. Don't forget to communicate about
all the colors.
Performance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, let me advance the slide. So I'm going to segue it up. We were talking to some advisors the other day, and immediately after we talked, we were going through this, the hands went up and said, so what way am I supposed to communicate? Like, what are they looking for? So tell us.
Yeah. Well, email continues to be king. But listen, FMG are real experts in communication, and I think you guys just acquired a text messaging company. Text messaging is out there as an important upcoming service. Everybody's got concerns about compliance and things like that, but text messaging is becoming a norm for communication. So nothing major startling here except email, phone calls, and don't underestimate the power of snail mail too. Nobody's getting it anymore, which means it's unique and different, and sometimes it's hard to get that email through. So try several things, but there's not just one way to get in touch with people.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like we get a little bit of a surprised, not quite surprised that email is still king, but I think not sure if it's in this deck or not, but you did a cut of, I think it was advised clients over 50 and those, maybe under 50 or under 40. And it was equally email on both sides. Maybe even the younger was higher, but it was both sides were equal. So age is not a determinant of whether email is king. Email is still king. And I'm going to make a bet that when we come back and do this same presentation, similar presentation in a year or two, I think phone call and text message may swap. And you'll see maybe text being the second. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the different types of communication. You've got one to many, one to some, and one to one. And I think, obviously phone call is one to one for the most part. I think text is a great way to get scalable one to one. And yes, FMG did just acquire my YCharts. So at the end, we'll give contact information for FMG for anybody that's interested in learning more about my YChat, which is a way that you can text compliantly, syncing with your CRM and basically leveraging some automation tools, as well as just making it easy for your team. But yeah, I do think this is really interesting. For me, email and up and coming is text. And the rest of the vehicles you see here, obviously, I think it's interesting to point out that newsletter is only 7%. And I do think a lot of advisors like to check the box and say, I send out a monthly economic update, I'm good. And it'd be interesting to look back on that poll that we took in the beginning, and those that said that they are communicating monthly. I'd be interested in how many of them are just doing a monthly newsletter and considering that the touch point. And what this is telling you, I think, is just a reminder that newsletters are absolutely a great foundational sort of drumbeat, but they are not the panacea that can let you sit back and just say, I'm good. So anything else on this slide?
No.
All right.
So I'll draw things to the close on the survey by saying you do not want your clients going to Jim Cramer for more information on markets and investments.
That would be terrible.
They're going somewhere for information. You want them locked and loaded on your plan. You want them coming to you for information. You want the opportunity to reassure them, encourage them, educate them. Careful, because they're looking for information. In many cases, when you're communicating well, which is the lower left, and frequently enough, they're still going somewhere else for 50% of their information. If you're communicating infrequently, they're only coming to you 25% of the time. So the risk is apparent. If they're not going to you, they're going to somebody else. That somebody else could be another advisor who has more to educate them on or tell them about, or it could be Jim Cramer, which is going to throw your financial plan really for a big loop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is really important. Your clients, when something happens, and just on a consistent basis, if you are staying in front of them before they get curious or before they're wondering, they won't be Googling and looking. You definitely want to get ahead of being in the position where they're wondering and you're not communicating. I don't know that you can Google too many financial topics without getting ads to find a new advisor either nowadays. So dangerous to have them out there Googling for information that would be fantastic value add for you to provide.
Agreed. So I'll just conclude very quickly by saying, I rattled off some statistics here. I'd summarize it by saying communication builds trust, and trust builds confidence, trust builds retention, trust builds referrals, and all those things together build growth. And I would just say, hopefully I've stated my case, there's a big opportunity for advisors to be better communicators. There's 50% of your client base has considered or has left, and take that to heart. And Susan, why don't we show some ways that people can be better communicators?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure we hammered the points home. And I would say intuitively, I'm guessing most advisors are sort of nodding, and why they joined is they do believe in these hypotheses, because it's always, I think, fascinating to see the actual data from surveyed, advised individuals. So let's transition into, okay, I need to communicate more frequently and the style matters. Tell me how, what are some ideas? So I am going to start with what to talk about, because I think, a lot of advisors that I talk to are struggling with understanding they need to do more communications, but then there's well, if I need to send out more emails each month, what am I writing about? I mean, what am I supposed to say? And isn't it going to be too much? Well, I'm going to give you some ideas. First off, 60%, this was a study by BNY Pershing, 60% of investors believe that most financial advisors make the same promises, that they are describing themselves in the same way, which is making it hard to tell them apart. And I think this is a real truth. We are in an industry where it's relatively difficult to differentiate based on the services that you provide, as a laundry list. Let's look at this next slide. This is super interesting. This was a survey done by Advisorpedia that shows a list of services expected from your clients and the perception of your clients as to the services that they are receiving. And if you look closely, hopefully the graph isn't too small, there is only one service that they expect that is very close to, not even quite there, with the services that they believe that they receive, which is investment management. I mean, that's at the base level of commoditization of what you provide. The next closest one is financial planning, which is 26% off in terms of expected received. Now look at all the others: wealth transfer advice, trust services, estate planning, tax, real estate, small business, education. And you know what? I wish I could see everybody, because I bet all of you provide all of these services. But what this is saying is you aren't communicating effectively to show that you are doing this and demonstrating, just the fact that this is happening as part of the financial plan, and that on your website, we do comprehensive financial planning, and, we help manage your money. That's what your clients are seeing and hearing. We have to remind them of the other services that you provide by being a thought leader and talking about these specific topics. So we'll send this deck out after the webinar. This to me is what to talk about. This literally is a topic list of things that you should be talking about consistently to your clients, dripping on them with thought leadership, valuable information, whether it's regulatory or legislative changes that are going to impact any of these things, updates, strategies, mistakes that people make. This is a great list. And I'm going to go to the next slide, because when you talk about these services, how you do it is very important. We are an industry filled with jargon and acronyms. We just can't get ourselves away from loving a good acronym. Investors don't know any of the jargon and the words that we use, and the more we're using it, it just is a turnoff. It's just not how you talk. So there was studies that have done that showed holistic does not hit the mark when you're talking to somebody. Financial freedom, integrated advice, those are just these lofty terms that just, you may think they sound good, but they're not. There's no emotional connection. So write like you're talking to your sixth grader. Write in a way and communicate in a way that is far more authentic, human, conversational. And I'm going to give you some examples. And what's interesting is when, go back to that survey where 60% of investors think that you all describe yourselves in the same way. I think the best way to differentiate yourself is in your messaging and in the frequency and style of your communication. Because a lot of people struggle, like, I've got to do something different. I've got to offer some new crazy service, or I've got to, what niche am I going to go after so I can have a differentiation? You can all differentiate yourself with better messaging and more frequent communications on some of those topics I mentioned. I'm going to give you some other topics. But another interesting fact is that Morningstar did a study that showed that investors are 50% more likely to choose an advisor based on behavior or emotional factors rather than financial. And I'm guessing you're not surprised by that. And advisors with high EQs, this was a study done by Ali McCarthy, they get 2 times more referrals. So move your messaging more into the high EQ, also talking in common speak. And let's show you some examples of before and after, and I hope you will feel the difference, the powerful difference. We provide, how many of you have somewhere on your website, we provide estate planning services. Maybe you don't say that for high net worth families, maybe you say for small business owners. We provide estate planning services. Another way of saying that is we craft legacy plans to care for our clients' families. I mean, getting that word care and families in just immediately, I think, just strikes you differently. How about we help clients minimize taxes? A different way of saying that is we help clients keep more of their hard-earned money to use towards their dreams. Just so much deeper connection with that. One more. We make sure clients have adequate insurance coverage. We help clients identify solutions that protect what they value most. Again, I wish I could see everyone, because this gets me super passionate about the opportunity that you have to update your messaging, to create that differentiation between you and others, and to be the framework from which you update your communication strategy going forward. So think about that. And I've got other examples if you're interested. My email will be in the back, and I'd gladly weigh in on some other ideas around this.
Susan, can I just add in?
Yeah.
I think the theme there is you are smart. Your prospects and clients know you're smart. You don't have to use big words or complicated or confusing expressions to come off as you are. Keep it simple. They'll understand you, and they'll walk away with a clear message.
Yeah, and just, I think if you're thinking about, well, how do I shift my messaging? What am I trying to get at? I think the best way to summarize it is, instead of describing what you do, think about what is the emotional outcome that the client is looking for, or the fear or insecurity or aspiration that they're hoping to accomplish, and write about that. Hopefully that helps. So now that we've talked about somewhat of the what to talk about and the messaging strategy that I really hope everybody thinks hard about and probably has an opportunity to make some tweaks in their marketing materials and website. The other thing that I want to point out is critical to your success is having a plan. So I think for many advisory firms, marketing is a series of fits and starts. I don't know if you all would agree, but it seems from those that I talk to that there are sprints and then hiatuses. And it's because you have a ton of different competing priorities. You don't have significant resources or even expertise. And I think it's also fundamentally something that advisors tend to have a short-term mindset around. And as a result, they'll try tactics for a month, maybe a quarter, possibly, longer. But if they don't see results, if they're trying a content strategy and 3 months later, they haven't gotten a new client specifically from the emails they're sending out, there's a tendency to just abandon the strategy, and again, lead to that fits and starts. And I have something that I think is pretty powerful. You all talk to your clients all the time about the importance of a long-term perspective, the importance of diversification, the importance of patience. Well, marketing is exactly the same way. Unfortunately, there is no quick hit. Marketing is the long game. It also requires diversification of effort. It requires patience, and it requires a long-term perspective. I love this. We all say, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. Well, it's really close to the marketing thing. It's not timing marketing, it's time in marketing. So there's my motto for the day. So to come up with a strategy that you can actually execute on and not have a tendency to abandon, I put together these monthly goals that I think is attainable for everyone. And this is actually for FMG. We just about a year ago, we launched a program called Do It For Me, where myself and other marketing thought leaders at the company, we actually get together and we think about, if I was hired by an advisor to develop a content strategy for November, what would it be? And then we write all of that content for the advisors that are part of our Do It For Me program. They have the opportunity to edit and opt in or out and customize, and then we send it out. So that's certainly doable. There are options. There are many vendors that can help you execute, but this is what I would put down as your goal. So for a blog, I start with blogs because the others sort of cascade from those. I'd aim for 2 to 3 a month. I guess you could maybe try, one at a minimum, but I would aim for 2 to 3 blogs a month. And I've listed some possible topics, and I'm going to take you through examples in the coming slides. For emails, I would also recommend 2 to 4, and it's probably 2 to 3 unless there's some event that is happening in the world, in the markets, in the government that warrants an update so that you are, again, getting ahead of the news before your clients are looking for information elsewhere. And then on social media, I believe that you should aim for 6 to 12 posts a month. And if Samantha was here, she would be telling you a heck of a lot more than that. But I think these are foundational and realistic goals for most advisors. So either 6, or what I aim for in our Do It For Me program is 12 a month, which is about 3 a week. And again, there are topics that I will recommend so that you have diversity of the type of content that you're posting. And then the bottom one is, it's content in a way, but it's a bit of customer experience. At least once a quarter, you should be doing some sort of surprise and delight and random act of kindness for at least your best clients. So that is sort of foundational goal that I think all of you should be able to attain. And again, we'll send this out. So
Hey,
let's
Susan,
talk about.
can I ask you a
Oh,
very quick question?
yeah.
I is it realistic for all advisors to aspire to be amazing social media personalities, amazing bloggers, podcast hosts, able to write a really good
Oh, yeah.
macroeconomic
I think they
survey?
should be
What's your
full-time
recommendation? Should
marketers.
everybody try to do all of those?
Um, Absolutely not. We talk about all the different, types of mediums that are and channels that are, buzzing, and podcast is one, and video is one, and webinars. And as I said, diversity is the key to marketing. But no, I believe that marketing is an ascendant journey. And I think there are steps that you take as you master the prior step. And I think at the most foundational level, it's just having a really great website. If you haven't updated your website in the last 2 to 3 years, it's time to update it. Your website is your first impression, not meeting you in person. It's your website. And then from there, I think email is the next most important thing. And once you're really in a good swing with email, then I think you're layering in social and blogging. And the two, as you saw that content calendar, and I'll show you an example of this. For me, blog, email, and social go together because your content can be repurposed. You write a blog, you can shorten it for an email and drive people back to your website, and shorten it even more for a social post. And then you're just rounding out your email with timely communications, and in social, rounding it out with some, I'll talk about some strategies. But after you've mastered those core elements of the content strategy I've mapped, that's when you add on the next. And that could be a podcast if that plays to your personality, or that could be doing webinars, or that could be adding video. But don't do those, back to that fits and starts in your marketing approach, don't do those until you've got the foundational elements really nailed. Does that help?
Yeah, very
All
much.
right. So now we'll start to fly through the presentation a little bit. I just wanted to show some examples to get your mind going about the kind of topics that you can write. Back to the, okay, if I have to up my communication game, what am I going to write about? So that list of what clients expect from their advisor, again, is such a great list of topics, and that'll get you going for over a year. And by the way, you can repurpose content, year after year. A lot of stuff is evergreen, and you could just tweak it and update it in, 12 months after you wrote it the last time. People are not going to remember that it went out, 12 months prior. So here are some examples. All the content I'm showing you here are examples of what I've written for our Do It For Me program, but they're topics that you could certainly write yourself. So one topic that's super trending, I think, is relating to long-term care, caring for seniors, preparing for taking care of aging parents. That whole realm of a topic gives you lots of meat, and will absolutely be something that both your clients, prospects, centers of influence are interested in. And then, of course, estate planning, and take any of those topics on there, and you could come up with the top 7 most common estate strategy, tax strategy, business succession. All of them could have a top blank mistakes and how to avoid them content, strategy. So that's a great way to think about things to write about. The next is, so you've got your kind of financial planning topics. Then you want to be thinking about, okay, every month I probably want to do something that's really timely. So what would be timely for the month of October, let's say? So for October, actually, what I wrote for our October Do It For Me clients is a year-end financial checklist, something that, they have a couple months that they can still get ahead of it, and just talk through all the different things that you should consider as you get to year end. So it could be tax loss harvesting, making sure that you get reimbursed for your FSA, all those sorts of things. Understanding the September effect was one that we did in September that I was actually surprised at the feedback we got from advisors from their clients, that clients loved this. Lots of emails from clients to advisors. Some said that they got emails from clients that hadn't been engaged in years. And they said, I don't really pay attention to your newsletter or anything, but this was really interesting. That was a verbatim quote. And I think that just goes to when you send something that's interesting and gives them an aha, you've just hit gold. So timely topics. And then an easy one for social media as well, it could be also for email, is sharing interesting articles that you read from the media. So this is simple. You don't actually have to have written it. You can just find something that you think is very relevant and interesting and add your own opinion. And what I'm showing here is how FMG makes this easy. We have a mobile app, which will actually just give an alert on your phone when there's a new timely article added from all the different media outlets. In this case, I think it was, I'm losing track of time, but was it just last week that the government almost shut down? So there was a what happens if the government shuts down from Fast Company. Great article. If you were in our app, that would have just popped up. And then what's cool, which I'll show you how it works in our app, but also relevant for you as you think about content generation, is the use of AI. And I know I'm still feeling I get more cringes than I get yays on this, but bear with me. So in our mobile app, you'd click on an article, you'd click to share, and it shows write text for me. So write the caption for me. So here's the article. You'd click, I would love to show this to you live, but imagine that it's just automatically, and you've seen, I'm sure, demos of ChatGPT, but within our app, it writes the caption for you. It includes, we've actually trained it based on marketing best practices aimed at LinkedIn. So this is long form, where you're ideally creating a synopsis of the article and adding some opinion, as well as asking a question. And the way this works is then you can edit it. It's not meant to be hard, the final draft. And I think that's where a lot of people, I think, get hung up with AI is it's just a draft. It's no different than if you hired a copywriter to write you a draft. It's just free and faster. It isn't fake. It isn't, they don't hallucinate over summarizing an article. It's just copy. It's just writing. So don't be afraid of it. And I'll give you a couple tips. So this is within the FMG platform. But if you're not an FMG customer and you're thinking about that content strategy, AI can absolutely help. There are 3 different ones that I'd like to recommend. I think everybody's heard of ChatGPT, but there are 2 others that you could explore. One is Bard, B-A-R-D, which is Google's AI. What's interesting about Bard is because it's Google's AI, it is actually, it's real time. So it is up to date based on everything that's on the internet today, whereas ChatGPT only goes up through December 2021. And then my third one that I really like is called Claude, CLAUDE.ai, which is from a company called Anthropic. And that is up through 2022, December 22. And that one enables you to add documents. So if you wanted to add a document and have it write a summary or give you the key points, it can do that, which is really cool. So AI will be another webinar another time, but I wanted to show you that, there are ways that you can gain efficiency in creating content calendars that enable you to achieve your communications frequency goals. And it can either be a combination of AI, your team, or partnering with a vendor like FMG and YCharts. So the last topic type that I do think you need to sprinkle in is human interest. Generally, these get more engagement than your financial ones. So one that we wrote for our Do It For Me clients was AI's role in shaping tomorrow. And this is, I just wanted to show an example of literally what it looks like when we write a blog, and then I convert it and rewrite it as an email, shorter, hitting on the high points, and then I rewrite it as a social post. So again, when you write content, write it once, repurpose 3 ways. And then on social, the way to round out your social strategy when you've already got your financial planning topics, you've got your timely topics, and you've got a human interest, you're going to round out by being social on social. A great idea is to share good deeds that happen in your community or in the, in the US. I've added this as something I try to do each month on our Do It For Me calendar. And I just Google and try to find a great good deed story. And frankly, it's not as easy as you'd think, but they get great engagement. People love good deed stories. Sharing motivational quotes, they get great engagement, especially when you add a little bit about why that quote is meaningful to you. And then, of course, share recognition, any recognition that you get, or when you go to a conference, just share a picture of people at the conference and some things that you learned. And, it's a great way to get a little bit of social proof while rounding out sort of the social goal of your social posts. And back to our, I think, key point is get to your audience first. When something is happening, like the government shutdown, you want to be emailing them before they are Googling what it means. So last Monday would have been the opportune time. So that's when we wrote an email for our customers to be able to get this out, as well as post it on social. Don't wait for them to search and let them think that they have to get information outside of what you provide. So hopefully that was helpful and got your wheels turning. You saw that there were a lot of visuals in the communications and content that I was showing, and I want to turn it over to Sean to talk about how charts and graphs and things that YCharts produces can also produce fantastic engaged content that is engaging.
Thank you, Susan. One of the things I did want to say, with all of the tactics that Susan just laid out, please remember that obviously first prize is that somebody opens it and then digests it and enjoys it and finds it valuable. But don't forget, second prize is they saw it in their inbox and it sent a subliminal message that said, I'm thinking about you. I'm here to serve you. I have something of value. So I think sometimes that gets dismissed because people are saying, well, I saw some statistics saying they didn't open it. I know every email in the subject line that is in my email box. I may not have read them all, but I know it's there. And that was somebody telling me, I'm thinking about you, I want to talk to you, or I care about you.
That's so true.
So Susan, anybody interested, click on the QR code here. YCharts believes that a picture is worth 1,000 words. We've got charts in our name. And what we try to do is we provide a platform that you can either create the content yourself, or you can just borrow ours, copy, paste it, change it, and use it for yourself. So free to everybody on here is click on this QR code. We just published our top 10 charts that we think that advisors should be communicating to their clients. And these are all free to use.
Good.
So everything from, hey, there's all kinds of reasons why you should have gotten out of the market at some point in time, and a great chart that shows that, but also shows that time the market went up 2,100%. Hey, what happens if you tried to time the market and you missed the top 40 days or the top 25 days or the top 5 days of a year? What does that mean? How would you have impacted your performance? A slew of things, interest rates, putting a whole lot of different things in context. We try to put that out because we know advisors are busy. We know a lot of them are looking to express the same thing. And we say, hey, we'll get you 80, 90% of the way there. Here's a chart, modify it as you see fit. Your logo's at the bottom, add commentary or change the commentary and push it out and tell your prospects and clients, I love you. And so these are just a couple other examples of the things that are available free of use, especially like the picture on the right, which is, hey, here's all kinds of reasons you should have gotten out of the market, but look what you would have missed if you did.
Love this. So in sum, I talked too much. I went way over my 35-minute goal, but thank you for everybody that stayed with me. Set goals to ensure consistency and avoid that short-term mindset and tendency to abandon when you don't see, some attribution of a new client because you started sending out thought leadership on financial planning for 3 months. It doesn't work that way, just like investing. Find timely topics to use across blogs, social, and email. Repurpose. Write it once, just shorten it, and you've got a great content strategy. Let AI help write your content. It's a starting place. It's not the ending. And use charts and graphs to convey complex information. So Sean, do you want to just mention anything here, or should we move? Have we talked about this?
I would just reiterate the point. If we can help in any way, shape, or form, but whether we help you or somebody else helps you, make a visual component, communicate more often, communicate more timely, and don't forget when you communicate, do communicate about how your clients' investment returns are proceeding and what a good steward you are of their nest egg.
Absolutely. And I'll just show you, just so you can visualize this monthly content calendar that I've been talking about. This is what we send out to our Do It For Me customers, but this is what you could create for yourself. Create a calendar and create a category for email, social, blog, and maybe automations where you've got a newsletter that is going out every third Friday, and map it out on a calendar so you can see what the timing looks like, the frequency, and you can get ahead on this. You're going to add in timely stuff as it happens, but you can get ahead by planning your content strategy by month, working on it the month before, or even sometimes 2 months ahead. So this is what we do for our customers. They get to see the calendar 2 weeks before the month starts and make any edits, changes, opt-in, opt-outs that they want, and then we actually will execute it for them. If you would like to ask any questions of us, I know the Q&A, I haven't seen any questions, but if you want more examples of some of those EQ messaging tricks, or you have any questions about our Do It For Me offering, or would like to learn more about YCharts and missed that QR code, please click on this QR code and we'd love to hear from you. I will answer every email you send, and I will just look forward to the next time that I can meet with all of you. And I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And we will send out a replay as well as the slides. So with that, thank you, Sean, so much for joining us. And thank you to everybody for spending an hour with us. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Well, Susan, Sean, thank you both so much. This presentation was just chock full of information. We had tons of questions come through, actually. And we were speaking about jargon. So if you don't mind, there are actually a couple questions just around what high EQ means. So if you wouldn't mind just clarifying that for folks on the call.
Oh, sure. And I'm so sorry. I don't know how I've missed the Q&A. I might have the box wrong. I love answering Q&A. I kept looking for it. So email marketing@FMG Suite with your questions. Inundate me. I'll work on it all weekend. But EQ is emotional quotient. And it's writing, talking, thinking. It's behavioral finance, but thinking about the emotional outcome, the emotional drivers, as opposed to the more literal, descriptive, factual elements.
Fantastic. Like I said, we had several questions around that, so thank you for the clarification. And I know we have time for just a few more, so if you wouldn't mind sticking around just to answer these, and then folks can follow up
I'll
via
stay
email
as
or the
long
QR
as anybody
code. Wants. Fantastic. So there were several questions, so I'm just going to condense a few here around utilizing things like ChatGPT and AI to help with content. How do you, as an advisor, navigate, though, the compliance complexities that come with that? A lot of folks were concerned that if they use AI tools, to craft marketing messages, how they then navigate compliance concerns.
Yeah, I am a Series 24, and I am highly conscious of compliance, but obviously I am not a compliance expert. So what I'm going to say is dependent upon your own compliance team's policies and procedures. So I don't want to get in trouble and say anything wrong. But if you hire a outside freelancer to write you a blog, and you go to ChatGPT and you enter a bunch of bullets and facts that you've come up with and say, give me a first draft of a blog, it really is not any different. And then you take both versions. You take the one from the freelancer, you take the one from ChatGPT or Claude, you put it in a Word document, and then you're massaging it into your own piece. To me, I don't understand why that's a compliance issue. It's words on paper. It's only an issue if you're using any promissory or any of the, the words that we know get flagged. So I think, nobody is asking you how. I don't think, once you submit something through compliance, like if it's through FMG, it's automatically routing through compliance. So if you wrote a blog on, and leveraged ChatGPT, but copied and pasted it into FMG or into the email, it just routes to compliance like you typed it in from the top of your brain or copied it from a Word document from a freelancer. So I'm not sure if I just got myself in trouble, but they're just words.
That is a very good point. A few more questions here while we still have time. We had one around speaking to the younger generation and high net worth clients. Why are they wanting more contact and communication? And if you were just to distill it down into some actionable items, what type of contact and engagement would be sensible for those two groups?
The exact content calendar that I mentioned, I am actually very focused on both of those audiences. And it's, I think it's call it 1 to 3 blogs, 2 to 3 emails, and 6 to 12 social posts, and surprise and delight at least once a quarter. And the reason is because you want to keep in front of them. You want to be the source of information before they are looking elsewhere. Timely content is the most powerful, but also, that content relates to the things that they are losing sleep about or wondering about or insecure about. And so that list of topics that, services that were expected, both high net worth and the next gen are interested in all those things. And it's just important to be developing multi-channel content that is reflecting on both your connection with the needs of your clients, the topics that are of interest, showing your thought leadership and expertise, and again, differentiating yourself and even reminding your clients that you do provide all those services. Because right now, without talking about them, their perception is that you don't. So I think for all of the things I've probably talked about for the last half hour, they all play into why it's important for the next gen. And for younger generation, high net worth, I don't think it matters. Back to Sean's study that shows there was no difference in age for likelihood to refer, desire for communications, communication method, et cetera.
And we probably have time for just one more here. And so I thought this one was really interesting, talking again around jargon and utilizing plain language versus, all the industry acronyms and things like that. So, the Edelman Trust Index and other researchers indicate that trust between clients and advisors is built on the client's ability to really understand financial information, but that information is overly complex. So do you recommend the use of plain language on materials that are not marketing content? I mean, obviously some regulations require plain language, but most investment firms and other than their ADVs do not provide clear, concise content.
I'm not, so is the question, should you use plain speak content in what medium? Like in anything regulatory wise, I don't think we have any control over, but in everything else, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I will write something and then I will ask myself whether I would actually use any of those adjectives or words in a sentence. I will go back and probably delete some of the flowery adjectives that I had a tendency to put in because I'm just so used to doing that. Plain speak is more human. And again, it's higher EQ, but it also is what your clients and prospects can digest and remember. Otherwise, they'll gloss over. Just like I will bet you, very few people are reading your economic update.
Yep. Susan, in 54 years of life, one of the few things that I've come to understand is there's very few audiences where big words are appropriate. If you're talking to a college professor of history, go ahead. But everybody else, family, dinner parties, sports teams, your clients, your colleagues, keep it simple. They're going to understand it and they're going to thank you for making it super clear. Use the big words and the complex topics. You're going to lose a lot of people. And what good is that?
Completely agree. All right. Last question, and then you guys can follow up on the side with all the other ones that came through. But if you were working with a bank trust department that didn't have a communication strategy at all, what would be the number one item to implement first?
An email communication strategy that drips on clients and prospects with thought leadership on those topics of financial planning.
All right, there you have it. Email strategy.
What would you say, Sean? Would you say anything else?
But start simple. Assuming you're bound a little bit on the website, which you pointed out is the best thing you do. If you're bound and can't do anything there, start with the email and start getting some communication flowing with drip marketing.
Fantastic. Well, again, I'm afraid we've run out of time. This absolutely flew by, but thank you to Susan Theder and Sean Brown for just an outstanding presentation. Be sure to follow up with these folks post-webinar. The replay link will be available, and would just like to thank FMG for making today's webinar possible. Once you leave the event, a short survey will pop up in your browser window, and we'd appreciate it if you'd share your feedback on this event, as it helps us to provide you with content that's obviously most interesting to you, our audience. And on behalf of wealthmanagement.com, again, we thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Wealth Management.